Almost exactly 1 year ago, with the release of Rise of the Duelist, we were introduced to what would become an epic adventure and a world rich with lore similar to the World Legacy saga. Now, with each core set release, this world gets fleshed out as the story continues, from Fallen of Albaz and the Dogmaticas, moving on to introduce archetypes like the Tri-Brigades and Springgans as Albaz moves through his different forms, the most recent of which being Albion the Branded Dragon from Lightning Overdrive. Things are starting to take a bit of a dark turn as the story continues in Dawn of Majesty with the introduction of the Despia archetype. The Despians seem to be corrupt versions of the original Dogmatica monsters, judging by their artwork, and are a fusion-based strategy revolving mostly around dark fairies and light fiends. There's a lot of potential synergies there with existing archetypes, one example being Dark Lords, summoning things like the first Dark Lord. In terms of competitive potential, they mix well with their lighter counterparts Dogmatica, and of course, who could forget? Normal Summon Alistair. We're going to take a first look at some of the cards in English here and reveal the rarities from Dawn of Majesty, releasing August 12th. So first up here, I guess we can start off with the shiny secret rare and searcher of the deck, Aluber the Jester of Despia. This seems to be a corrupt counterpart to Albaz himself, as you can tell from the stats and the design, and the effect is as follows. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Despia spell or trap from your deck to your hand. If a face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, special summon this card, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effects until the end of this turn. So right off the bat, a really nice card getting you a search on summon and offering free recovery from grave with a negate on top of that as well. It would be ridiculous if you were able to trigger both effects at once, so of course we need that one effect per turn clause at the end there. You get your plays started by searching your fusion field spell, but we'll get to that in a bit. Next up here, I want to show you one of the fusion boss monsters. Despian Cueritus. Ultra rare. I believe this is like the armor of Fleur-de-Lis that's been corrupted with the same 2500 stats. This requires a Despia monster and any light or dark monster. So you can imagine Super Poly being pretty nuts in this deck. During the main phase, quick effect, you can change the attack of all monsters currently on the field to 0 until the end of this turn, except level 8 or higher fusion monsters. If this face-up card and its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can add to your hand or special summon one Fallen of Albaz or one Despia monster from your deck. So it's kind of unlikely that it's going to be destroyed by battle thanks to its quick effect, and if it gets removed outside of battle, you open up a lot of good options. Summoning Albaz by itself gets you a potential interruption there and then with his fusion effect, otherwise you could summon Aluber for a search, or just one of the other Despia monsters depending on the situation. If you want to push for damage, you might want to summon Dramaturg of Despia, the corrupt version of Maximus with the same stats but in reverse, so 3000 attack. He's also an ultra rare and has this effect. If a fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link monster is special summoned except during the damage step, you can target one effect monster on the field, negate its effects until the end of this turn. If this card in your hand or field is used as fusion material and sent to the graveyard or banished, you can special summon this card. You can only use each effect of Dramaturge once per turn. It's actually crazy how much this synergizes with Shadal's and Invoked. You can banish it from your field as fusion material for things like Shadal Schism and Invocation, and then just get to summon it back to the field for free. And on field, you of course get that negate effect, which you can either trigger yourself or just let your opponent trigger it if they need to use their extra deck. This is a trigger effect on the summon of the monster, so you will be able to chain it to the effects of things like Striker Dragon, Construct, Halki Fibrax, and then just negate them. So yeah, really good cards. This next ultra rare isn't actually part of the Despia archetype, but it does synergize with the strategy, and that is Protecting Spirit Loagath. I like to think that Ecclesia is too pure to be corrupted, and this is somehow the result of that, so that's why she stands out as the only light fairy separate from the Despia archetype. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one monster on the field. It cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. You can only use each of the following effects of Protecting Spirit Loagath once per turn. If an effect of a fairy monster you control is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can target one face-up card your opponent controls and one attack position monster you control, banish that opponent's card, and if you do, change your monster to defense position. Overall, I would say very fitting to the theme of the card, and non-destructive removal is always really nice, as well as her being a free special summon with beefy stats. And the artwork is gorgeous. The rest of the cards here are a lower rarity, but this next one is the bread and butter of the archetype that brings it all together. Despia Theatre of the Branded. You might have noticed a branded card or two in Lightning Overdrive. Well, they kind of go hand in hand with Despia. So this is their field spell that reads as follows. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. If a face-up non-fusion fairy monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect or is destroyed by battle, you can target one level 8 or higher fusion monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use each effect of Despia Theatre of the Branded once per turn. So just in case you didn't realize there, this is super generic. You can fusion summon any level 8 or higher with this, and if any non-fusion fairy you control leaves the field, you once again can summon back any level 8 or higher fusion from the graveyard. Obviously, it does need to have originally been summoned properly, but El Shaddoll Construct, Invoked Mechaba, literally any Albaz fusion, they don't even get banished afterwards, dude. This card is insane. Now, what if I told you the Despia archetype also has its own better version of Signet Mining? I'm honestly super surprised that some of these cards aren't higher rarity for how good they are, but here we have Branded Opening. Notice how this is a branded spell and not a Despia spell, so you can't search for this off of Aluber. It is, however, a quick play spell and reads as follows. Discard one card, then take one Despia monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense position. Also, for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters. If a fusion monster you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect of Branded Opening once per turn. This card is absolutely nuts, dude. The fact that it's a quick play spell is really nice, and also the fact that the discard isn't cost, unlike Signet Mining. If it does get ashed, thanks to the way it's worded, you're not going to be restricted from the extra deck. You get that protection while it's in graveyard, so you're safer from things like Lightning Storm. And it's not even like you're just adding the target. You get to special summon it from deck, like special summon Aluber. You can search for the field spell and then fuse into whatever you need to fuse into, while still being able to normal summon Alistair. Next up, we have the bigger boss monster, Despia Protection. Of course, this is the corrupt version of Dogmatica Nexus and shares the same stats. This one requires a Despia monster plus one light monster plus one dark monster. That's basically a full Dragon Link board, so once again, Super Poly is sounding real nice. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target one Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster in your opponent's graveyard. Banish it, or special summon it to your field. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack or defense, whichever is higher. You can only use each effect once per turn. I really like this effect because you can use it as interruption, like a DD Crow, or you can use it to put out a ton of damage by stealing your opponent's monster. It doesn't negate the effect either, and I think that's going to be hilarious, like summoning your opponent's Dragoon or something. And then the burn effect is also pretty nice, basically just guarantees that you're doing damage. This leaves us with just two more monsters to show off here, the first being Despia Tragedy. Kind of reminds me of Altergeist for some reason, just looking at it, but its effect is actually pretty good too. If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, you can add one Despia monster from your deck to your hand, except Despia Tragedy. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one branded spell or trap in your graveyard, set it to your field. You can only use one Despia Tragedy effect per turn, and only once that turn. So you can send this off something like Shaddoll Fusion or Foolish Burial to search a Despia monster, then you can use it to recur a spell or trap later on, like Branded Opening. This gives the deck both a consistency boost and a nice way to grind resources, so a very welcome addition. Then finally, we have Despia Comedy. Same stats as Tri-Brigade Nerval, but I don't know if there's a connection there. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a face-up Despia cards you control, quick effect, you can discard this card, negate that effect. If this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you contribute one fusion monster, special summon this card. You can only use one Despia Comedy effect per turn, and only once that turn. So it's kind of like a mix of Saravis and Linkuriboh, which I'm sure would lead to some pretty interesting combos, but yeah, that's everything we have to reveal today. Overall, I think this archetype really brings a lot to the table. It really makes me want to play like a pure Fallen of Albaz deck. I think that would be really fun. But it also has some real competitive potential there as well, being blended with Dogmatica, Invoked, and Shadolls. Let me know what you think of the archetype in general in the comments below, whether you're going to pick them up or think we'll see them competitively. We may or may not be doing an early box opening real soon, hint hint, so subscribe to the channel and we'll maybe see if we can pull some goodies. That Protecting Spirit Loagath would look amazing in Starlight Rare Dude. But yeah, thanks to Konami for sponsoring this video, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.